Pyramid One Radio Network is the most unique radio network in the world. It's growing larger, faster than any informative radio network anywhere on this planet. On the show, we talk about problems in our countries, our world, and a lot more, including ancient civilizations, quantum science, paranormal, spiritual, New Age, healing experts, past life regressions, ancient crystal skulls, conspiracy, and our real-time connections with other dimensions. We also have special guests that are the ingredients of our world community that help to make our planet a better place for everyone. My guests come from all over the world: Hawaii, France, Africa, Bosnia, England, Scotland, Holland, Canada, Mexico, and many, many more countries. Just go to www.pyramid1network.com and click on Bob Charles Show blogs to see the menu of guests week to week. You can also call into the shows by dialing 1-843-300-1399. Help us to help humanity, and listen and learn to the shows you will be hearing more of right here on Pyramid One Radio Network. This is a Pyramid One International Network presentation. Hi, let me tell you about the host that is going to be your host tonight on her show about oneness. This is a weekly radio show right here in South Carolina and the Netherlands. The radio host, Karen Neumann, of About Oneness, a weekly radio show, is about celebrating the ongoing conscious awakening of our planet and our realization of oneness. Karen is an integrated channel, medium, Reiki master, and metaphysical teacher. She has varied and diverse background, including that of being a singer, a dancer, and a writer, as well as working in the sport, nutrition, and fitness world. As a channel, she brings forward the teachings and knowledge of her non-physical guides called Theos. The teachings of Theos bring forth messages of oneness and unconditional love. The show features discussions, channeled readings, and study. The purpose is to expand the awareness of our truest selves and tapping into the truths of the universe. Your host, may I present Karen Neumann.
Hi, Bob.
Hello.
It's been a long time since I've talked to you person to person, mano to mano.
Well, there you go, baby.
How are you?
Very good.
Good. How's the sound? Good?
Oh, yeah.
I'm using a different computer this time. I'm using a PC and not a Mac. So
I told you. Yeah, see that? And, so many people that use Macs, and they just don't, most of the systems, any system that's internet that does this type of transmitting and things, it's all Microsoft based.
Yeah.
So when you put a Mac on it, it turns around and you see like a cross come up, like go away. One of those things.
It's like, leave me alone.
Yeah, it's like in the background you hear, it's like, hey. But no, you're 100%. And so's Max, by the way. And I saw him over there. I told him to turn off the video for crying out loud, because this is not when you're doing a pod or something, there is no, like, we've got too many connections right now all over the place, and that, so he can only hurt himself by putting on the video at this point.
Yeah, I told him to lag. You can create lag. So, but we're gonna have a good show. Max, actually, I just want to say hi to the audience. Hi, everybody. I've been busy doing stuff, and I've been experimenting with pre-recorded shows, just because some of my guests are European and it makes sense for the time difference.
Oh, yeah.
But I do miss doing live shows because I miss talking to Bob.
Yeah.
Yeah.
My girl, let me see, 6,000 miles away.
That's right.
Okay, well, I'll be right over.
So meanwhile, back at the farm,
right.
I got a message about a week ago, from our guest, and it's Max from Human Colony. And
I got that too.
Yeah, and he's like, "Hey, I want to be on your show because I have something very important I want to talk to the public about."
It's been in the blogs for about 3 days already.
Yes. So we have Max Steinberg on the line. Hi, Max. How are you doing?
Hi, Karen. Hi, Bob. Hi, everybody. Thanks for having me.
Hey, Max. Did you see what was on the blogs? Max is back.
I saw that. Like a big Mac attack or something.
Yeah, right. Max is back. Oh yeah, I got plenty of email on that one. Well, they said, see, it was really good in a way, because a lot of people now I'm not taking anything away from anybody's intelligence, but nobody read what I put down there, and I put a couple of links on there too, and had to go and see some stuff with Max. Nobody really looked at it. Max, I explained to everybody very, very heavily, what was going on and everything else, and he had some stuff in disclosure and that, for this episode, in a sense. And so many people wrote me and said, "Who's Max?" So I went through the roof. I just wrote it right on a blog. "This is Max." It's like, hey. So it's like, hey,
pay attention, read the blog.
Yeah, that's right. Read the book.
Yeah. So Max, so welcome, and we're gonna talk about a subject that you wanted to specifically talk about. You've been getting some information, and so why don't you just start, and we'll just let the conversation flow from there. But I know second. You hear my squeaky chair. That's my squeaky chair.
Will you oil that thing? The little spray stuff or something. A little blurb
try not
here.
to move so much. So Max, why don't you tell us about what it is? Hold
on.
Oh, sorry.
Anyone that wants to be part of this conversation, get in here and ask questions. Have something to add to the conversation. Dial 1-843-300-1399. Or if you're on the chat box right now, I'm going to put an address on there that you can Skype from anywhere on this planet. Just put the address in Skype and you will be on the show with us. Go ahead.
Okay, so Max, basically, why don't you tell us what it is specifically you wanted to talk about, and what is the origin of what you want to talk about, and why?
All right, thank you. So I wanted to talk about global economic crisis and what would Lightworkers do in the time of the crisis. So basically, there is tons of people who talk about emergency preparedness, and it's more like 3D scary stuff, like survival, end of the world. And it has been around for a long time. If you look back in the history of expectations of the end of the world, it was like 2000, 2001, 2012. So there is not much new here to add, except that if you look at that same thing from a higher perspective, from 4D perspective, from fourth density, fourth dimension, aliens, and what we know about aliens these days, there is a new outlook on that. And I was ready to talk about that 4 years ago, 2012, I already was ready to speak about that, but something held me back. And what held me back was the idea of the law of attraction. If you talk about the end of the world, you attract yourself to that timeline when things go wrong.
Right.
And, light workers who have their higher chakras activated, they know for sure if you talk about something, it happens. It just, like recently we several light workers, we spoke about that, and someone was like, always their mood was going down, like everything is good, but, and something is wrong. And that's I say, no, you don't say that. You don't. So there is that fear of thinking about negative things, right? And I was into that, and I had that presentation about what to do in the times of the crisis, but I didn't let myself go. I thought it's not time, it's not right to do it, so I held it back forever. And now around 2 weeks ago, it just came to me, it's time to start talking about it. And I asked my higher guides, I hired my spirits, meditated on it, and it was just a clear message. First time it came, I was driving, so I wasn't even meditating. I was driving and chanting. Can I chant now a little? Or would it spook the audience?
No, go ahead. Go chant.
All right. I will give you a chant which is very basic, just Om, and the intention is to connect. Om. So that kind of chant, very simplistic, right?
I understand. Great.
And it just comes to me that, time to speak about. And then I have my group of channelers, my circle of friends who are psychics and channelers, and we speak to extraterrestrials. Our community is called humancolony.org, and it's wonderful. We give birth to new channelers, and existing channelers find us and speak with us. And we are different from other communities that we do everything in real time, online broadcasting and in recording. So most of the things we do is recorded and you can find on YouTube. So that's the difference. It's like, ongoing hangout. Use Google Hangouts. So I have access to people who channel, and I ask aliens and, so there are aliens who have physical bodies in higher dimension. There are ascended masters who don't have physical body, but they could manifest if they want to. And there are spirits which don't have physical body, right? So I ask those entities, spirits, what's going on with the global crisis? Why should we speak about it? And they say, yes, you should speak about it. And they wouldn't give away information, so I had to guess. Again, I have to look up there. And my best understanding is that a decision has been made somewhere. I would say my estimate is an agreement between the aliens and I would say human governments, human military, cabal, and so on.
NASA.
With main players. The agreement has been made to go ahead with the crisis. So it's not something that just happens to you. It's something which is planned, right? It's a very different outlook because it's in everybody's interests there. But the timing, I don't think they decided yet. They still have different agendas about the timing. Basically, what the aliens say, the crisis is needed because the economy just can't go much further. The whole system needs to be remade, and the only way they can see how it can be fixed is by wiping out the old system and setting up the new. But the second answer, which always goes together, they wouldn't show up in the sky, they wouldn't take responsibility, they only give advice. And their advice is, you go ahead with the crisis and rebuild your economy and political system. We will wait until you're ready. So it's hands off from aliens' perspective. So our friendly aliens, wonderful Pleiadians, Lyrans, Arcturians, Yahyel, tall grays, good grays, and several others. They are waiting, hands off, waiting for the humanity to become ready. But their advice is go ahead with the crisis. Same thing.
Let me just interrupt you because I want to understand, and I want everyone else to understand. So you're saying that first contact, which is what everyone's sort of waiting on, is now going to be delayed till after some sort of economic crisis. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, that's the direct answer which I got from them. Yep.
Yes. But then the crisis is being decided to be put into place in order to break down economies for the good of all, or for the detriment of all, because that's to have a big crisis. What is the purpose of having this crisis?
Yes, for the good of all.
For the good of all. Okay.
Yep. The contact is delayed, and the crisis for the good of all, for fixing the economy. Yep.
Okay, so if we go back to what Bashar said in 2016, everything will change. That was has been a big thing that people are sort of waiting on. What is the outcome of that prediction? Is this in line with that, or is it now saying, okay, that's not going to happen? Nothing's happening in that way. Where are we with that?
I don't think it is decided in that detail. Like my understanding, again, I don't have direct line to them. I don't channel direct words. I just ask questions and I get answers. My answer is they came to the agreement. Basically, bad guys and good guys came to the agreement. Yes, we delayed the crisis forever. Now we don't delay it anymore. We don't put brakes on it. We let it happen as it happens. But the details are still in works. That's my understanding.
And by crisis, because what you had said to me that was about economic collapse. Is that what you're talking about? You
Yes.
see a crisis as full economic collapse.
Global economic collapse, yes.
Okay, and how would you define? Would that be just everything just completely stops? I don't know how that would look like. What would that be?
Wonderful, great question. My first impression was that the electricity and water will stop for 5 years. That was my first impression, and it's really scary. But then I kind of, again, meditated on it, and I got the answer, no, not that bad. It would be more like previous crises in Europe, when different parts of the economy went down, different money went crazy, different cities and towns would lost power, but it wouldn't be total collapse. I would say it would be total collapse of the currency exchange, different currencies we have. But and it will cause collapse of some governments. But my estimate, again, it's my estimate, is that different pieces will stay up. And I would say most importantly, the military will stay up. The American strongest countries would still stay up, and my understanding, they will cooperate. Just the military. It will be like forming global emergency government, which will rely on American military. That's my from general thinking about it. I don't have any primary sources for that.
Okay, and do you know what the cause of this would be? Is there a primary cause? Is there a certain something that would happen that would trigger this?
Yeah, they say it's not decided, and it really doesn't matter what will cause it, because if one thing falls down, like remember, Greece economy went down, something like that, smaller thing. On a global scale, it would be smaller chain of events like dominoes falling down. In the past, everybody made an effort to keep it up. So they would patch the holes and fix emergency things. But this time, if they don't make a conscious effort to keep it up, it will fall.
Okay.
That's my understanding.
Okay. So basically then at some point you perceive that this will happen, and then that's when what you want to talk about. What should we do, and how should we move forward in that moment? Is that correct?
Right. Yeah. So talking about, I'm not actually following the politics and economy. I learned from aliens about it, right? So I'm not a great expert on modern economy. I like to read history. So my unique perspective here is that it is divinely guided, and the aliens don't do anything by themselves, or at least the official aliens. There are official groups of aliens who negotiate with Earth governments, who are bound by agreements. They're not allowed to play an order. There are, I would say, partisan aliens, pirate aliens who kind of sneak through the barriers transdimensionally. They might do a little bit, but basically the United Alien Force, like Galactic Federation of Light, like Ashtar Command, like Girk Fitneer Command, Pleiadian, Arcturian, Lyran, these have hands-off policy. They would do everything possible except intervene. Basically, they would work through us. They would work through starseeds, and that's dimensional perspective. Basically, there is tons of starseeds on Earth.
Right.
Some are very conscious. Some are speaking to aliens all the time. Some are speaking to God all the time. Like, my favorite reference is go watch Fiddler on the Roof from that perspective. Fiddler on the Roof, that musical, which is about, I would say, 7 years old now.
7?
70, I would say. Maybe
Yes.
60. I don't know.
Yeah, I was just going to say I saw the original play. I mean, it was like, hey,
Which year was it? It was like 78, 82, something around there.
No, it's much earlier.
no, that was
than
that was in the 60s.
Yeah, maybe.
50. Yeah.
So,
Yeah,
anyway,
remember Zero Mostel? He was the Fiddler on the Roof, the original Fiddler on the Roof. I have his autograph.
wow. So Tevye was talking to God all the time. Through all the musical, it was a monologue with God. So many people right now have that monologue with God and with their guides and with the angels and with aliens, which basically in most cases are on the same side guiding us. So that would be a guided process, I would say. That's pretty, from my perspective, it's pretty straightforward. And the goal of that process is wiping out the current broken economy and allowing us to build a new and from scratch. And basically, many forces would benefit from that. Even the bad guys, the cabal, they understand the economy is sick. So even they want to have that crisis to cancel their own debts to each other and start over. But as aliens say, the idea is that after everything is rebuilt, they want to be on the top. They would stay in control. And the good guys really want us to rebuild the economy because it's corrupt in many ways. And the biggest problem is, bubbles, lots of bubbles of companies which are selfish and just confuse the economy, right? Confuse the economy.
Right.
Yeah, can I throw one in there real quick?
Yes, go ahead.
Max, would this mean that, and I've heard this for many, many years, that a reset was coming. Is this the reset since money is supposed to be the root of all evil? Reset, yes, absolutely.
Love
reset.
of money is the root of all evil.
Go ahead.
That's pretty. I mean, seriously. I mean, without money, humanity has to do for itself. Has to survive for itself. It teaches itself over again the things it should do, but it still retains the forward motion it had in the first place. But now it's simpler.
I'm that's the main topic. What will happen to money? And tons of people have very different ideas. I have my unique perspective, which I wanted to share here. And my unique perspective is, I lived through Russian crisis of 90s, of the Russian perestroika. And Russia was a playground where tons of ideas of no money, different ideas of money were played out. And my understanding is that the humanity is not ready to get rid of money. It is just, like the crisis of 1929. The bubbles exploded, but then they continued with the new money, basically. It was the money backed up by gold, but it was just, refreshing the economy while keeping the idea of the money altogether. In Russia, it was so one of the main take-home or like starting points is that it's really hard to reinvent anything. In this, humanity is so diverse. Everything has been tried one way or another. So if we don't have a system here without money, we can't invent it after the crisis. We have to look at the existing systems which are functional and where the money aren't used, right? So within the families, usually, in most cases, the exchanges between people don't use money. Some families use money a little bit, like, kids get little cash and things like that. But in general, there are like presents, and even just you give people food without asking them to pay, right? Big tribes, same thing. Monasteries. Monastery is one of the oldest institutions which functions within itself without money. Israeli kibbutzes. Many of my friends don't know what it is, but it's basically agricultural community in Israel, they started 100 years ago. They got a big boost with formation of Israel. They are subsidized now. They do lots of different technologies, and there they play out the idea of internal exchange without money. Basically, it's a big collective where they can share food, share babysitting resources, share production, take turns in different capacities. Some are very go very far with that. Basically, they live in very communal setting and have meals together and have clothes washed together, have universal clothes. And some are very, very other way around, more like just collective of families where they can come and go at any time, like a membership communities, closed something, fenced communities, something like that. So other examples are corporations. Within corporations, sometimes they use money, but often they use their own, sometimes substitute of money, right? They can give different resources. Governments, within the government, they can share resources without use of money. And in Russia, cash was barely used. It had very little sense. It wasn't, the prices were very different from, the prices on the West are not right because things don't cost what they cost, right? In Russia, the prices were even more skewed because things weren't costing the money price didn't reflect the real value of things. In parallel to money, we had what would correspond to electronic money, which at that time was just money on paper, like different papers and different numbers in government system, which never were cashed within the government. And then there was distribution of goods, which was without money, basically. And that was a huge part of the Soviet economy. So basically the whole system would function through telephone calls, through different papers. So the goods were distributed and produced and distributed without even the mention of the money, or the value of money in the money was nominal, or like zero, like, $1 for a huge something. And usually in Soviet system, there were people who were watching over the goods. So if your manufacturer needs some source material, you would send some person or a group of people to grab it somewhere, and they will go negotiate and through the Soviet system grab it without paying and bring it back on a train, and your manufacturing facility would continue, which makes no sense to Westerners, but that's how it works. And then there were food stamps, and food stamps in Soviet system were huge, right? Especially after the war and at the times of crisis. So the whole population was on food stamps. Basically, everybody had money salary plus food stamps, and food stamps were real money, and real money were nothing, right? So you can imagine how it could play out in the future. I'm not advocating for any of that, but that's how things usually happen. In Russia, we experienced that in a short period of time, the money was devalued through inflation. Basically, the government, we elected the democratic government. Democratic government started printing money like crazy. So, every morning or every week, the money went down. The value of the ruble went down. So things were initially, which was costing like $10 or 10 rubles, then they would cost million rubles. And million sounds like lemons, so we counted in lemons. How much this car costs? So it's 5 lemons, right? So that's one of the ways to do the money reform. Another money reform is to print new money and say the old money doesn't value anymore. Like the new money, everybody gets a share of the new money. Everybody starts from the same amount. And that idea was circulating among Lightworkers, was channeled by many. So that there are stashes of paper money in different banks, and they are ready. It was, I would say, 5 years ago, it was circulating. I don't know. They might still have that ready to roll out. So I don't know how it will happen, but the beginning doesn't really matter, because what happens, the governments start changing like crazy. The military stays, but the governments, they change. Like one government fails, people elect the new government, could be democratic, and then it does the reform, and then people become really upset because things don't go well, and they re-elect another government, then dictatorial government comes up, and a series of government changes. And I would expect the same. In different countries could be different, but I would expect that a global military government would be formed, and possibly it would be led by the united military of strongest countries. So that's my best guesstimate. And what aliens say, that there will be tons of propaganda advocating for that government. And as military ideas and military propaganda develops, there will be communities of Lightworkers who thrive in that nonsense. I didn't express it right.
Interjection, real quick one. Does that mean that we would go from a more or less democracy in government to a council, like a galactic council?
I don't know. I think
Karen
it would be
would
still
know better.
Before the contact. That there is a possibility that the aliens will show up here and there. There is a possibility that there will be some idea of aliens around, because when there is no restriction, when there is no censorship, lots of different ideas. But I think it might drown in the noise. I don't know if the humanity will be really awakened to the idea of aliens. It would be just, as tabloids are now, it would be around, but I don't think it might not be as strong. So as they still would have hands-off policy, I would say we'll have a global government, just human global government, which would control only a limited territory, like military bases. I think military bases have enough resources to go through many years, like fuel, electricity, and food. They're just like canned food. And the rest of the world would be in different states of chaos. My understanding is that it would be pockets of relative prosperity and relative disaster.
So this government that you're talking about it's not going to be an elected government. It'll be sort of an emergency world government.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, that's my best guess. It's not what was channeled. It's just my best guess. Everybody wants this unified. Bad guys, Cabal want unified government. They want global economy, global financial system, and global government. They will get it. And the aliens recommend to get a global government. So it's in the interest of both governing, like, strong powers for the humanity to unite.
I'm very skeptical about that, because I just think of the amount of difference between people and language and custom. I just think I don't foresee it. I'm not saying it can't happen, but for me, it's very hard to even wrap my mind around something. Living in Europe and just seeing even the differences between, the different countries. It's so vast. It's so big. I just can't imagine that. I mean, in Brussels, they can't agree on anything. And, I mean, you're talking about countries that are, not even 100 miles apart from each other. I mean, the Dutch and the Belgians don't agree with each other. The French and the Belgians don't agree. The England just left the EU, basically. The Scandinavians don't want to participate. I don't know. I find this idea of having a one world government
all right, let's
very hard idea.
Let's take what you're saying and let's embellish a little.
Okay.
Why don't we take a representative from every country for instance, their president or their leader of their country.
Like the United Nations?
Like a United Nations, only it would be a council, because every single one of those persons in that would be a voting member of one body.
That's what the United Nations is.
Yeah, but there's too much other things that go on with that. I mean, a billion times I've said it belongs in another country, not this one. But if they all voted together on one idea, for instance, if you go to the UN, you're going to have a billion things coming in from all kinds of countries, all kinds of ideas, all kinds of different ways of doing things, all kinds of help and more help. And more money going here and there and the other thing. How about just coming out with an idea that this is what we're going to do to make humanity better? And only come out with positive things, not negative things. Forget the negative things, because if you get rid of the negative things, you only have positive. So let's get rid of the wars, number one. Let's bring all the guys home and everything else. And if somebody wants to fight, put them in a closet somewhere and let them beat each other up. Go ahead. Go do it. Somebody will come out okay. But the idea of the thing is, there's so much negative and no positive going ahead in a body way of doing counseling or as I had said in the first place, a united government. Not a government under one person. Like, for instance, right now in America, it's like having a queen or a king in America. One guy can turn around, they can 188 guys can vote on something, and he can turn around with one pen and say, nope, I don't like this, I like this, and sign it in law. So we have Obamacare, which is now a law, not an insurance, but insurance is something that's an option of every single human that lives in America, but now it's a law, you have to have it or else. So that's against the law. But take things like that or that particular idea and erase it. Give everybody a chance to talk. Vote the highest, the level of whatever the council net has net. We go for it. If it doesn't work, get rid of it. Don't let it keep on going and bleeding us to death.
I think that's a great idea. I think that what Max is talking about, though, is this is sort of the precursor to whatever would be sort of an ideal situation. He's talking about that after some sort of collapse, there would be sort of be an emergency government in place and controlling everything. Is that what you're saying, Max, or not?
Yes, you're both right. Yeah. What Bob described is like a reform, a good reform, which would exclude the idea of the collapse, basically. We don't have to really go to complete collapse to reform the economy, right?
Right, exactly.
So I love it, actually. I love that idea. If it was up to me, I would prefer reform.
It's the whole world putting the brakes on. Just saying, stop. We goofed. Let's go back and do it again.
Right.
Right, Karen?
Essentially, they did that in Iceland. I mean, that's basically what they've done. They've revamped their entire economy. They've revamped their entire infrastructure. They kicked out all the bankers. They did all this stuff, and they have a very blossoming economy. They rewrote their constitution. They've done it. It's a small country, but they did it.
But it's a positive government only.
Exactly. Yeah.
There is no negative in it. They threw the negative out. Goodbye. See ya. Go play somewhere else.
Yeah, they did that. And I mean, each country could do that on an individual basis, and do that. That's a great possibility. I think that would be incredible if we would follow in that vein. I think that'd be wonderful.
Yeah, wouldn't it be nice if America turned around to its military and said, okay, bring all the guys home. Now, for instance, you take something like ISIS. If you take away everybody that wants to fight with them, who are they going to fight with? They're gonna get bored. Hey, I got nobody to blow up. Nobody wants to fight with me. Nobody wants to put me in the media. Nobody wants to report on me. Nobody wants to tell me how bad I am. Oh, well, what am I going to do now? Well, I'll go. He can go farm if he wants to. All of these things you have to just take the negative totally out. And the positive will blossom.
I agree. So Max, what is so basically when we get into the situation, because your focus is on the light workers and what they should be doing. So what is it that you want to communicate about that?
Thank you for the prompt. Yes. So basically, as I see it, if that crisis happens, right? Local governments would have no money for the gas or for the fuel to feed the electrical system. So electricity would fail. Without electricity, the water supply would fail. So the cities would go in the dark, right? Like big cities, small cities. I can see just lights turning off all around the globe. And it could happen, say, asked, when would it happen? In the past, they gave us the number 2027. They channeled messages, they're aliens and higher beings. And now they say it will be much sooner, but they didn't say the number. They say it's still in works. I assume every power is building its own plans when it will happen. So my best guesstimate is like 5 years from now, say 2021 maybe. So if that happens, basically Russia went through that sort of purge of the old system and rebuild of the new system in about 5 years. And it took about the same time for the Europe in the big crisis of 1929, which led to rise of Hitler and so on. But basically, in 5 years, basically the old finances are kind of dumped and the new finances are recreated. The new system is recreated. The property is redivided, but it's in old ways. So I assume it would be like lights go on and off. The economy goes up and down. The propaganda goes up and down, and light workers would have a chance to reunite and to reunite with the divine. Basically, right now there is huge noise in the system, huge propaganda noise in the system, and huge uniting of the humanity around materialistic ideas. If the radio and television goes down, if electricity goes down and television goes down, people would discover themselves, as we did in Russia, just in silence. And imagine what it does to the matrix of the reality. When people become lost, the whole matrix starts shaking and miracles happen. So that's one of the main messages, which I just take home messages, which I experienced in Perestroika. When the propaganda stops, like just Soviet system just fell apart and people on television didn't know what to say. Basically, they didn't have agenda anymore. The previous lies didn't work. The new lies weren't yet concocted. So at that time, light workers can shine in the dark, basically. If you have a belief, if you are connected to God, the telepathy, their psychic powers become stronger. You see, that illusion of reality, which is co-created by the humanity, all these billions of people who believe in the materialistic idea, when this coherence is lost, then the new ideas have lots of space for propagating in the matrix, in the etheric part of the matrix. So that's a chance for us for light workers to create a new idea of the new reality. And we have a few years to prepare for that. And the preparation is as usual: meditate, pray, and do energy work. So meditate with the purpose to connect to God. Pray. Prayer is the work. So meditation goes through higher chakras, the 7th chakra, the top crown chakra, and the third eye chakra, the 6th. And prayer goes to the 5th chakra. So you work with the highest chakras. You pray, you listen, basically you develop your telepathic abilities. And then you work through the heart chakra, which is Reiki healing, energy healing, Qigong healing, and actually energy transformation of the world. So you work through higher chakras and form a network, form a grid of light workers. And when the other network of greed, the other network of materialistic greed falls apart, it will be more like survival rather than anything. Then there will be silence in which the new grid can be formed. So that's my main understanding. So that idea of light workers uniting and uplifting the grid was around for a while. And I just see how the stopping of the propaganda machine might open the opportunity for building that new vibration. Let me give you a chance so you can
connect
to it.
I just want to I just want to come back into what we were saying. So basically, it's not it might be a global economic collapse, but do you see there being? I mean, you're talking about in a very positive way, which I think is a good thing. It'll give people a chance to look internally and basically return to their spirituality and sort of find themselves in this, moment of darkness, basically, because people are going to have to pull together in order to, from what I understand, get water and food and, and all those things. But it could be quite catastrophic if there's no electricity and no water. I mean, that can be quite catastrophic in a very short amount of time. So,
absolutely,
that could be, well, what that could be. I don't know that. I hope that that's not going to be the case. It could be the potential and the fear, but who knows if that would say. But basically, it's about people coming back to themselves and preparing. And so, in their preparation, what are you actually preparing for? I mean, if it happens, it happens, and I guess you deal with it at that moment. But what is it that you're going to be preparing for that moment versus the now moment we live in, that we should be living in and sort of not preparing for something in the future? Do you know what I'm asking you?
Absolutely, yeah. Thank you for that prompt. Yes. So we lived through that collapse in Russia. It wasn't complete, but it was pretty bad. So I had 2 small children and a wife, and it was clear that the economy was falling apart, and there was no information what is going to happen. Like, it was the main problem. We didn't know what will happen and where do you want to run. Because if you run away, say from the city, you become homeless, right? You now see homeless people on the street, you will become one of them.
Right.
We didn't have food in Moscow, just food disappeared, and the money couldn't buy it, and the jobs couldn't pay. So we didn't go to jobs, I didn't have any idea what to do. My parents couldn't help. So there were parts of Russia which weren't affected yet. And somehow we bought tickets for, retreat. It was middle of very cold winter, and we went to a retreat on the train. The train still worked. Electricity still worked. The hot water, they turned it off once in a while, but still worked. And we come to a retreat in the middle of, northern part of Russia. And there was still food, so kids could eat butter and pancakes, and they couldn't stop because they were so hungry, right? And it was wonderful. We had skiing, and it was like perfect life. You would go ski in the nature, and it was a big healing experience. And at one of the breakfasts, maybe a week after we arrived, electricity turned off. Or it was a dinner. So in the middle of or a dark evening, electricity goes off. So people there, they kind of little used to that. So they took oil, vegetable oil, put it on a plate, put a little napkin on it, burned the napkin. So they continued serving food even in the dark because, the food is already prepared. And then the plate cracks of the heat and a fire starts. So that was the darkest point of that experience. So, and then they told us that they will be turning off electricity like every other night, I would say, to save fuel, I guess. And then after that, I come home and, a real free market happens. So when the market is not regulated, people come on the street and start exchanging things or selling things for currency, and currency was rubles and dollars and euros. Oh no, not euros, marks, German marks, and just things which you can buy and exchange and sell later. I would say one of the, if you want to stock up something, stock up crank radios and crank flashlights, because these would be like most useful things in the absence of electricity and things like that. So, and you just see on every corner of a big city there was a market, open market, and things were selling. That was my main business then. Not main, my most profitable, until I was robbed of my goods. So we were selling something on the street, and the new economy was starting like that. Russia, which didn't have non-federal economy for many years, just started having private entrepreneurship right there. So one thing which many people would believe, that if you go to the countryside and start farming, that you would be able to sustain yourself. I'm really doubtful, because if you don't have fuel, resources, machines, it's really hard for Westerners to remember how to do agriculture the old ways without that. Even if you grow some corn or potato, how would you guard it? You would have to have an army of people who would guard it from thieves, and armies of hungry people who would want to eat it right away. So, and then even if you collect it somehow, how do you guard it from mice and so on, and from rotting? So basically, if you collect the food, like the harvest, you would have to live on that harvest till the next fall. So storing it for that long, it's art. So people in third world countries, they know all that art. So if you have like experts, agricultural experts from there, you can form a community that will teach you how to do that. But Westerners just showed, all the communes which are built around agriculture, they were subsidized. You really can do it. But the main conclusion is that, again, from perestroika and from our crisis, was that it wasn't the material hardships that harm you. It's the mental hardship. It's depression, fear, uncertainty, anxiety, lack of the core belief, lack of the belief that you are guided. Basically, my parents died not from the hunger, but from being lost after the change happened. Basically, now everybody is plugged into the system. You know your position. You are proud of what you are. And when the system crashes, you have to rediscover yourself. And that's interesting challenge. So my message is for Lightworkers, believe it will pass. It will be like few years of up and down. Believe that you will have the role after that. And learn how to be guided. Basically, in that confusion which could happen, the only way you can find the right way is just by divine guidance. You will be guided by the angels, but you have to learn how to listen to your guides. So practicing now to listen to your guides would be the best advice. Mm-hmm. Again, Reiki work, energy work, prayer, chanting, and meditation, all with the idea of connecting to the divine, to the spirit, and practicing every day, getting messages and seeing where you should go, what to do. And often you would disagree with what they advise, and practice it. You just at least pay attention that they did advise you something. For Reiki healers, there will be lots of work just to heal the trauma of others. And when people start dying, much of the energy work is actually helping people to cross over. It's a big part of Reiki work, just to help them die in peace and connect. That act of kindness, when they receive it at the end of their life, is really healing for the next lives. If the person dies in despair, it is a huge trauma which would be carried to other lives. If you give them kindness when they die, it heals in a huge way. And the only thing you need to do is just to be with them and love them. That's all you need to do them. And then when they feel that, they are guided on the other side and connect to the spirit in peace. It's a huge work for light workers. And there will be a huge trauma if it happens. I mean, if any change happens, there will be a huge trauma, right? So just healing the planet, healing the matrix becomes a huge work for light workers.
Sounds like everyone's going to be very, very busy. So you wanted to do a chant. You wanted to show a chant. You wanted to do a demonstration of a chant, of a good way to connect.
Oh, yeah. Any prayer is good. The typical prayer for our time is gratitude, invitation, and gratitude. Start with gratitude. And when you are scared, coming up with gratitude may be not as easy, but intend to be thankful for the experience. Then invite. Leave for them the way they can help. Invite help and then leave for them the way they can help. They decide when to come and how to come, and then think again. So that's the idea. Like, thank you, Divine Mother, for your help. Thank you for that experience. I will be worth it. I want to continue. I want to be healthy. I want to help others. I want to uplift the world. I want to help Ascension. Thank you for that opportunity. That simple sound of just one note, one Om, is bringing you into balance in a very simple, like, each person is very fragmented, distributed, unbalanced, and when you have one tone to hold onto that, it gives you stability. It allows you to collapse all the complexity in one simple intention. So that's a way to, just one note is sufficient. You don't have to be sophisticated, unless, of course, you want to. One of the advices, obvious actually, is go camping and see how little can you take with you. And suppose you can't go to the nearest gas station and buy more. And see, just experience it now. Living without electricity, living without supplies or with minimal supplies. What do you really need? That was my hugest lesson from my relative. Her name is Aunt Mary, would be in English. She was very much older than I, like sister of my grandmother, and she survived the hunger in St. Petersburg. At that time, it was Leningrad, basically. The Soviet army, the German army blockaded the Petersburg for several years, and Soviet army didn't give it up. So the peaceful population were left as just stuck there, and not many were allowed to leave. So people lived there, and every winter there were people walking on the streets, pulling the sleds with dead bodies. So it was pretty bad, but people survived that. And after that, it was a huge. People who survived that lived for much longer time by some reason. I guess the energy of died people was transferred to them. So she survived. She was traumatized. She didn't have a family, but there was a lot of wisdom she learned at that time, which she shared. And one of that is, if you live simple, you can live on very little. And you get your strength from just being yourself. Like when everybody was afraid after the war, she was working on a nuclear bomb project, which was so secret she wasn't even told she was working on that project. But, she was working there. And when Stalin died, she was brave enough to quit. And in Russia, it was unthinkable to quit your job because you weren't supposed to be not working, right? Everybody was supposed to be a federal worker. So she quit and she survived, and she was just traveling, helping relatives and friends and going to museums and learning. And she was always carrying with her a piece of bread, and that was sufficient. She was like really, really, really living most simplistic life, right? And teaching others. So, you don't really need that much. My other ancestors, my grandfather, his brother, and his parents, they ran away from Germans attacking in the previous First World War. They were Jews, and the Germans were approaching. They came to Romania, Belarus, and western part of Russia. So the Jews were smart enough to run away into the Russia, and then they ended up in Odessa. And Odessa just happened to have that kind of economic collapse. So basically, the whole thing fell apart. It was one of the richest trade towns on the Black Sea, and everything fell apart. There was no jobs, no nothing. So my grandfather and his brother learned how to read by going to empty houses and peeling off the paper from the walls and reading old newspapers, because the walls were the old newspapers under the, decoration paper, they were old newspapers. So they would read about civilized life, and for them it would be like some miracle which they didn't experience other than in newspapers, but they learned how to read, and also going to the cemetery and reading the inscriptions on the tombstones. But both of them became scientists, and very respected scientists after that. So basically, you do what you can do.
Right. You will find innovation. You'll find resources that you didn't even know that you knew how to find. When desperate times call for desperate measures, they say, and you will be able to figure out. I mean, ultimately, people survive things. Ultimately, people will gather their strength, and they will become innovative, and they'll figure out ways to do things. Max, we're really at the top of the hour. I just want to thank you. I hope that you were able to communicate everything that you wanted to. I would just say that I hope that, if in such a case something like this happens, it won't be as worldwide and complete as what you're talking about, because I was just thinking of all the different people that will be impacted. It will be a very, very trying time. Ultimately, I'm sure humanity will survive, but it would be like going from having everything to having nothing in one moment for everybody, for basically everybody, which I just can't even imagine. But it could happen. Everything's possible in the multiverse. I hope my timeline is not this one. I don't want to walk on this timeline. I love you. I think it was a great conversation, and I wish you a wonderful, wonderful night. Thank you so much.
Thank you too.
Bob.
Yes.
Time for me to go.
I learned so much.
I did too, and it's interesting
really
to hear him talk about perestroika, because you don't,
No, you never hear that anywhere.
You never hear it right from the horse's mouth. I mean, someone who's actually there and everything experienced. And, you think about people, who go from having nothing, having everything to having nothing in just one moment. It can happen to anyone. It can happen to anybody, and it can happen to the whole world at the same time. So, words for, food for thought.
You know what, though? I tell you the truth, though. The ones they call middle class and the next class, which would be the lower class, they will be less affected than the ones in the higher, levels of things there, because those are the people who, they'll be lost. And all the rest of us, we work. We do what we have to do. We do what we have to do because we have to do it. So we make sure we get what we want.
Yeah.
But they snap their fingers. Get me that. They can't do that anymore. Oops.
Well, we'll see what happens. I wish that everyone would be okay. I don't want anybody to be punished or, I take no pleasure in anybody having any pain.
Oh, so. No. It's just like as I said before, it's a reset. It's just like when you refresh a page on a computer. It's the same thing. When you refresh the page, the page will change and it will update itself. That's what humanity has to do. It's got to come around. For the last 200 years, we've been going down. You know, technology is up, but actually energy is down. It's around. It's time. You know, to bring them in balance.
Something's got to shift. We're coming to a point where something has got to give, because it's just, you know, you just think we've got a big transition to make. I would hope that we could make it in a positive, easy way.
I got my
we may or we may not.
I have my stick and my pillowcase and it full on my back. No problem. I'm ready to go.
I don't like the idea of no water. I'm thinking of like people's, and you know, if electricity were to cease and water were to cease, you think about the hospitals and all the old people, and that's really tragic. And the orphanages and the animals and the zoos, and you know, that stuff is really tragic. I don't want to think about that. So,
but just like you said, though, there is a barter system also.
Sure.
So we still can keep on the way we're doing things now. We just have to do it a little differently.
Yes. And we can, and some things, you know, there's alternate money systems coming up. You've got Bitcoin, you've got some other alternative money stuff. And that's, you know, that's all interesting. I know a guy, I should have him on. He's really something. He's been in Bitcoin since it really started, and he's done very well with it. And he lives off Bitcoin now. He doesn't use, regular money at all, and he's quite an expert on it. That's interesting. There's a lot of nice stuff going on. I'd be really interested to tell you about what I'm doing with my shoe business, which is going to be really something. It's pending, so I'm very excited about that in the future. So, but it's been wonderful talking to Max. He's always got such good insight, and if something's heavy in his heart to talk about, then he's got to get it out there. So New Zealand has been on. They've been listening to to Max and that speaking that, and they're excited. Hi, New Zealand. Okay, perfect. Well, New Zealand, we will see you next week.
Oh, there you go. Okie dokie. You all right. Have a great evening.
Thank you. You too. Much love to you. Much love to you.
Tons of love. Bye. You and Max.
You too.
Bye-bye.
Thank you much.
All righty, everybody. Now listen. There's a lot of good stuff in that coming on. So just hang where you are. You know what I always say? God bless y'all. Heaven knows. We're out. Bye-bye!